So, in this video, I'm quickly going to talk about the functions of the circulatory system, and I'm also going to talk about the blood flow and where it goes in our body. A different diagram than what we've done before, so just a little bit of a different way to represent the blood flow. So, first of all, just so you guys know, it's super important for us to have a circulatory system because we are a multicellular organism. We have like trillions of cells. We need to be able to connect them. So being able to get oxygen to our cells, being able to get rid of waste from our cells, nutrients, all of that fun stuff. If we didn't have a circulatory system, our body wouldn't be able to survive because our cells wouldn't be able to communicate with one another. So our circulatory system is like the highway that connects all of the different cities in our province. It's kind of like that, but just inside of our body instead. There are other circulatory systems and other organisms that are also multicellular. Okay, so in my picture, I have like a fish and an amphibian and a reptile and a mammal. They all have some sort of semblance of lungs and have capillaries and some sort of pump, like a heart and blood vessels. So it's super important that we can, again, have those cells that we have in our body interact with one another and be sending things from one place to the other. If we were just a single cell, instead of multi-cells, we would be able to use the processes of like osmosis and diffusion to get something from one place of the cell to the other. But unfortunately, we can't do that because we have trillions of cells. And the reason why we can't just be one giant cell is because processes like osmosis and diffusion would take way too long. If it was like a cell the size of a human, it would take way too long to get from one place to another. It also would be that we would have to be taking stuff in from our cell membrane. And if we were the size of a human and it was just one cell, there wouldn't be enough of the cell membrane to take enough stuff in or get rid of enough stuff to actually survive. So that's why we have to have lots of different small little cells that make us up, and we have to have that circulatory system to communicate. So all the different things that our circulatory system does, it transports things. So for example, gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen from our respiratory system. It also transports nutrients, which comes from our small intestine, so that's part of the digestive system, and will also take waste in to the excretory system, which is the kidneys, and it will then excrete the waste so that it's not building up in our body. We also have our circulatory system regulate our body temperature, so sending blood to our skin versus keeping blood inside the core of our body to make sure that we're keeping our body temperature always at 37 degrees Celsius. So just depending on the conditions, if it's really cold, we keep the blood within ourself in the core of our body. If we're really warm, we send the blood to our skin and we can get rid of some of that heat that's building up in our body with the help of sweat as well. So we need to make sure that we're doing that. We can transport things called hormones, which are things that control our body. And we know these hormones. In Bio 20, we learn about CCK and gastrin and secretin, which are all hormones that control the digestive system. And there's a whole bunch of other hormones that it would transport around our body, making sure our body is staying always at homeostasis and making sure that we're doing what we need to do. It also makes sure that if we have an injury, we don't lose all of our blood by having a mechanism to clot, which we will also learn about in this chapter. And it protects ourselves from pathogens, which are like bacteria or viruses, and that's part of our immune system, which is part of our circulatory system as well. So our circulatory system is controlled by three things. So first, we need a pump to pump the fluid around our body, and that's our heart. We also have pathways, which are blood vessels like veins and arteries that pump blood around our body. And we also have the fluid, which is blood, which has liquid in it, which is plasma, and has all of those proteins in it, like hormones and enzymes and things like that. Also has cells like red blood cells and white blood cells. And just so you guys know, because we're talking about the circulatory system, the circulatory system can also be called the cardiovascular system, and cardio is heart and vascular is vessels. So it makes sense that we're talking about the cardiovascular system, the hearts and the vessels, and we're going to learn all about those things. So now we're going to just quickly review all the different parts of the heart and the body that the blood goes through. Remember, I always start in the vena cava, so there's two of them, the superior and inferior vena cava, and it carries deoxygenated blood. That's why I'm using the color blue to the right atrium. The right atrium will then send blood through the tricuspid AV valve down into the right ventricle. And the right ventricle will then send blood up through the pulmonary semilunar valve, through the pulmonary trunk, and into the right and left pulmonary artery, which sends blood to the lungs. And in the lungs, we will do gas exchange, so carbon dioxide and oxygen will exchange in the alveoli of the lungs. And we now have oxygenated blood. That's why I'm using red now. So we're going to go back to the heart using the right and left pulmonary veins, which leads to the left atrium. We go through the bicuspid AV valve to the left ventricle, and the left ventricle will send blood up through the aortic semilunar valve into the aorta. There's the ascending and the descending. The ascending sends blood up to places on top of our heart, so like our arms and our head and our neck. And the descending sends blood down into our organs and our legs. So those would all be parts of our body that we're sending blood to. In our body, we would take in the oxygen that's in that oxygenated blood, and we would get rid of the carbon dioxide that's built up in the cells using cellular respiration. And now we have deoxygenated blood that would eventually go into the vena cavas, and we would do this whole process over again. So this is something that we learned in the previous video, but it's just basically in a different way so that you guys can, if you like this way of kind of organizing the flow of blood, or if you like doing like the box diagram or having an actual heart with arrows in it, they're all basically showing the same thing, just in a different way. So hopefully this makes sense. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.